Relationships, I think it's the greatest challenge that we all have in our lives. How to be able to stay at peace with others, at peace with ourselves, when sometimes we are deeply hurt by somebody else's words, somebody else's reaction, and sometimes the actions of another person are so insensitive that it tears us inside of us. So to introduce the class today, we have to start with what Rabbi Akiva said. Rabbi Akiva, quoting the verse in Parashat Kedoshim, said, love your fellow Jew as yourself. Zeklal gadol b'Torah. This is the great rule of the Torah. Now we have to understand. What do you mean, the great rule of the Torah? Well, if we look in another passage of the Talmud, when one person wanted to convert to Judaism and wanted to know what is the whole Torah on one foot, he came to Shammai. Shammai told him to get out of there. What are you talking about? You want to desecrate the Torah on one foot? Hillel, on the other hand, welcomed him and said, Man de sanelach, whatever is something that you dread and hate, don't do to another. Veidach, everything else in the Torah, perushahu, it's only an explanation on this. We have to understand, what does it mean that the whole Torah is only an explanation on ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha, you should love your fellow as yourself. The mitzvah of Ahavat Israel, loving your fellow, is so great that it is greater than the mitzvah of loving God. And it precedes the mitzvah of loving God. Why? Because when you love your fellow, you love those who God loves. And that's the highest show of love you could show to God, to love another, to love somebody that is made at his image. To understand what love is, like the song goes, right? I want to know what love is. I want to know. I want the Torah to show me, right? So, in order to understand what love is, we have to understand a little the way we are built. What are we made of? We are a body and a soul. The body is indeed a levush, a garment, in clothing in which the neshama resides, and through which the neshama, the soul, is going to express itself. It has three garments, three ways of expression: machshava, thought; dibur, speech; maaseh, actions. The neshama, the soul itself, does not need a tikkun. It does not need to be repaired. It is the body that needs to be repaired. But through the body being repaired, being refined, a person is able to elevate his soul to the highest possible levels. And that's why it is our sages teach us, Lo nitnu ha-mitzvot ela letzarev ba'em et ha-beriot. The purpose of mitzvot is to refine man, to make a person that is more refined. How do you become refined? What is the definition of becoming refined? Well, refinement, as a general term, we all know what refined, a person that's refined and a person that's coarse is. But here we are talking at a higher level of refinement. There is a teaching in the Zohar HaKadosh that's brought down in many, many Hasidic discourses that says, "Kadidkafya sitra ahara istalek kekara dekucha berichu bechule u'almin." When a person breaks the sitra achara, he breaks the other side, which means the negative side. Istalek yekara dekucha berichu bechule u'almin, the presence of God, which is above all limitations, is revealed in this world. In our connection with God, what is the Zohar teaching us? In our connection with God, there is a connection which is through quantity, and there is a connection that happens through quality. Let me explain. Quantity, I do a quantity of good deeds, I do a lot of good things, and as a result, I become trained to do the right thing, to connect in the right way. And then there is the connection that happens through quality. I break my nature. I break my nature, and at the moment that I break my nature, at that moment, I refine myself to such a level that I'm able to become a vessel for a much greater level of light than if I did not break my nature. Everything is midah keneged midah. Our sages teach us that everything is measure for measure. I break my nature, I'm able to receive a light of God which is above nature. So now that this premise has been established, now that we've established this important foundation, let's explain what happens. What happens is, in the rapport between the soul and the body, what permits the soul to fully reveal itself is not only the good actions that we do and how we connect our bodies, and through our bodies we connect our souls to God, but it is specifically when we break our midot, we break our character traits. This past Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh Av, Menachem Av, we commemorated the yahrzeit, the passing of the only Jew that is mentioned in the Torah. The day of his passing is mentioned in the Torah. Aaron HaKohen, 123 years old, the brother of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, passes on. When we speak about the passing of Aaron HaKohen, it says, Vayivku oto kol bet Israel. All of the nation of Israel cried for him. The question is why? For Moshe Rabbeinu, it says Israel cried for him. It does not say the whole household of Israel cried for him. Because Aharon, even though he was the holiest man of the generation, the one and only that was allowed to go on the holiest day to prepare himself and to speak to God and to go into the holiest place, the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodashim, and pray for God, for the Jewish nation. What was his occupation all day long? The Mishnah and the ethics of our fathers teaches us, Ohev Shalom, he loved peace. And then it says, Rodev Shalom, he ran after peace. So here there are two qualities. There's the love of peace and there's the running after peace. The UN says they love peace, but they're not running after peace, right? You love peace, it's one thing. There are people that love a good argument. They love being right. And then you have a person that loves peace. Once you love peace, truthfully, you run after peace. And what did he do? He would be making sure that there is ahava, there is shalom, ben ish leishto, ben adam lachavero, that there would be peace between a fellow and his friend, between a husband and wife. Why? Because in the world, ha'olam kayam al emet v'shalom, the world stands on justice, truth, and peace. But not only stands, it maintains itself when there is peace. Where there is no shalom, you have nothing. Aaron HaKohen went and made sure to bring shalom between one another. I could tell you as a rabbi, it is certainly the greatest, the most difficult task to make peace between two individuals which have polar opposite opinions and view the world in a different way. One day, somebody came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and in Crown Heights, there was a big fight between two families. Unfortunately, the two families were not talking. Everybody knew about this fight. One of the members of one of the families that was in this big argument came to see the Rebbe in private audience. The Rebbe asked him, do you think that you are 100% right? Or is it possible that maybe you are only 90% right? Or 95% right? To this, he said, I'm certainly 90% right. The Rebbe told him, and if that's the case, then work on that 10% that you think that they are right and make shalom. Bring peace. Recently, I saw for the first time in my life, I saw a video where you see the Rebbe in the middle of a Hasidic Farbrengen. I can send it to you if you want afterwards, if you text me back. And you see the Rebbe saying like this to two people which are next to another that don't speak together, make peace. Shalom. Shalom, shalom, ve'en shalom. Peace, peace, but there's no peace. How do we start? Well, the reason I started with explaining the rapport that exists between the body and the soul is because Admor HaZaken himself says that in order to truly love somebody, your body, your personal self cannot be the priority of your life. The moment that your ego and yourself is the center of your life, you have a blockage. It is impossible to have true love and true peace. Why? Because at the level of the soul, we are all one. Interesting, I'm going to paraphrase what Admor HaZaken says in chapter 32, which by the way is the numerical value for the word lev, the heart, which by the way the Torah starts with a bet and finishes with a lamed, which is the word lev as well. And he says over there that Mi yodea gdulatan uma'alatan be'elokim hayim v'shagam she'av echad lekulanu. Who knows the greatness of every soul? Your soul, my soul, there's great souls, lower souls. But av echad lekulana, at the level of a father, we're all one at the root. To paraphrase this, I'm going to give you a parable. Imagine a tree. You have the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the tree is the father to all the branches. There are branches which fall lower. There are branches which go higher. But all of the branches, each one, while having its personal individuality and not losing their individuality, they're all attached to the same trunk. And therefore, We have to understand that as a nation, we are all one at the level of the neshama, the level of the soul. Rak shagufim mechulakim. The bodies are the blockage between two individuals. You're going to tell me, but Rabbi, I have a body. I do everything with my body. I think, I speak, I do. Well, that's what we said before. Now we can understand that the whole purpose, how can I truly love somebody? How can I truly unite with somebody? When my personal priorities are the soul. If my personal priorities are the body, no, I'm going to have jealousy. I'm going to have all these ill feelings about the other. If on the other hand, the soul is what's important for me. At that moment, I'll be able to elevate the soul over the body. And that's what we said before. That the quality in the service of God is that I break my nature, which means that I permit the light of the soul to shine inside of me. You see, the body is like a wall. And there is a voice from heaven inside that says to the soul, come back, return to me, come closer to me. As long as there's no crack in the wall, the light is not able to come through. A person lives in darkness. They live in their own darkness. The moment a person breaks his nature, he's making a crack and he's permitting the light to be able to come in. In order for us to have a good relationship between ourselves, in order for us to be able to cleave at a soul level, we have to break the nature of the body. Going back to Aaron HaKohen. How did Aaron, the older brother of Moshe, merit to become the high priest with such a high position? The answer to this is the following. If you remember the event of Moshe Rabbeinu standing by the burning bush, Moshe is in a conversation with God for 7 days. You take out the Jewish people. Not me. Who am I? What am I? The final argument of Moshe. How can I go? Since the Jewish people have been suffering in exile, I've been living as a shepherd, as a free man in Midian, where I met my wife. I established my family. My brother, which is older than me by 3 years, he's 83, I'm 80. He has lived the suffering of the Jewish people. I'm going to come. I'm going to tell him, brother, guess what? I've been appointed to be the redeemer of the Jewish people in Egypt. Is that respectable? Look at the sensitivity of Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not going to give the honor for my brother to be the one. So to this, God answers him something which is, I think, the most difficult thing for us to do. He says, Vera'acha, he will listen to your words. He will see you. He will believe you when you tell him that I appointed you as the leader. Vesamach belibo. He will rejoice in his heart for you. Aaron was at a level of humility such that his only interest was not him. It was to serve Hashem. And therefore, the moment that he receives this information, there's not one little bit of ego at that moment. He will rejoice in his heart. You know how sometimes you hear that so-and-so was successful. They sold their company. They got married. I don't know. They had a baby. And you're struggling with these things. You're struggling with parnasah. You're struggling with this or with that. And you hear somebody else It's good for them. I'm so happy. Mazel tov. Reluctantly, we don't give that mazel tov with the heart. When somebody, God forbid, is going through a tough time, we're there. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. But to be able to rejoice for another person's joy, where does this come from? How are we able to rejoice for another? To be able to rejoice for another, we have to believe in God. What does it mean we have to believe in God? There's a Jew by the name of Lev Levayov, a very wealthy, successful Jew, a great philanthropist. And what happened is that one day when the Iron Curtain fell, he was thinking of investing in Russia for business. He went, waited in line by dollars, and at that moment, the person before him asked, Rebbe, is it the time for me to invest in Russia? And the Rebbe says, no. So Lev Levayov is thinking to himself, he said no to him, he's not going to say yes to me. But nevertheless, he asked the question. And he asked the question, he says, should I invest in Russia? And the Rebbe said, yes. And not only that, you will support the yeshivot, you will support the Torah institutions in Russia. And he did, and he was successful. Let me ask you, what happened over there? This person no, this person yes. Every one of us has a shoresh neshama. Every one of us has a source of his soul, has a mission that is particular, that is specific to you. And therefore, there's one person that serves God, and the channel through which he serves God, and he does all the mitzvot, is through the mitzvah tzedakah. Another one does it through his voice. Another one does it through his connections. Another one does it through his speech. Every single one of us has been given a mission. As long as we are not fulfilling our mission, things don't go the way they're supposed to. The moment we discover what that mission is and we invest ourselves fully in that mission, at that moment, everything falls in place. All the things, the different elements and the different pieces that need in that puzzle to be positioned where they need to be positioned are positioned, and then you're ready to fly, you're ready to go, you're ready to do and to be successful. The problem is that too many of us are looking at what's happening with the other person. What's happening with the other person? Why are they so successful? Why is that person, why does he have a company that's worth $9 billion and he's only 27 and I'm over 50 and I barely can make ends meet? It's not fair. It all starts with focusing on the outside. The moment that I focus on the outside, this is the beginning of conflict. It means that I'm not in conflict with the other, I'm in conflict with myself. Why am I not getting the honors that I'm supposed to get? One day somebody came to the Alter Rebbe, if I'm not mistaken, and he studied in the yeshiva. And he says, why does everybody trample on me? You know, these people that say all the time, everybody's picking on me, always on my case. Why? So the Alter Rebbe answered, why are you spreading yourself all over the place? If you're going to spread yourself all over, of course, people will have no choice but to trample on you. The beginning of being able to create shalom, which, by the way, according to Kabbalah, Shin represents fire, Lamed represents air, Vav represents water. Mem represents water, and Vav represents earth. Shalom, the four letters of Shalom, is that all four dimensions with the four different natures are able to come together. Why are they able to come together? Because they're all fulfilling and looking towards one purpose. The beginning of everything to be able to have shalom is to not take space, is to work on one's self. You see, as one of my teachers, Rabbi Stauber, once explained to me, there are two things which block the vision of man: depression and anger. Both of those come from the same source. We'll explain what that means. Not what it says in Tanya, but we'll explain. It's just like when you have a building. You could either explode a building, that would be anger, and you can implode a building, that would be depression. But in both cases, you are destroying the building. Why? Because in both cases, there is one big problem. The problem is the vision you have. And that's why the word ka'as in Hebrew is the letter chaf and samech and the letter ayin. Chaf samech in Hebrew is kes, to hide. Ayin is the eye, the vision. So ka'as, in a moment of anger, you don't see right. Etzev, depression, sadness, is ayin, and the word tzav, which is like a turtle, covered. The eye is covered. What is the eye covered with? According to Rabbi Twersky, the main ailment of this generation is a lack of self-confidence. Believe it or not, you can come to the top, highest possible level, be a superstar, idolized by everyone, and God forbid, we have seen people in these positions commit suicide because of their lack of self-esteem. Self-esteem starts from inside. So how do we create self-esteem? The way to create self-esteem, the Zohar teaches us, because sometimes people think that self-esteem and humility are a contradiction. Not true. The Zohar teaches us, Ma me'ihu za'ir, ihu rav. The one which is small is the one which is great. Less is more. V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tiyeh. We say in our prayer, may my soul be like dust. V'tach libi b'toratecha. Open my heart to your Torah. Meaning that the prerequisite to be able to have an opening to greatness, an opening to Torah, is to be just like dust. But at the same time, it's not because you're like dust that you are a doormat. You know your value. Moshe Rabbeinu, with his connecting to God, lo haya ke Moshe. Never existed a man like Moses that spoke with God face to face. And if somebody would ask Moshe, Moshe, did you really speak to God face to face? He would not say, who am I? I'm nothing. No, he would say, yes. But I believe deep down in my heart that maybe with your qualities, with your character traits, if God would have spoken to you, maybe you would have done a better job than I. That's true humility. That's healthy self-esteem. The healthy self-esteem is, I know I have a quality and I have to use it. And I know my potential. I went to the depth of my potential. Like I've said many times in this class, the Rebbe says that each one has to really sit with himself and know what is my potential? What are my qualities? Once a person really knows what his potential is in details, then he will know how much to ask from himself. But instead, many people do not want to go that route. They're scared to ask too much from themselves. They want that the success that the other person toiled for should come in an easy way for you. It doesn't work this way. True humility is a motor to do more, to be more successful. as the Rebbe said, made a very important difference. That a person should always be happy, but at the same time never be satisfied. To go back to the subject matter, it's a question of perception. How do I look at the other? You're going to tell me, but Rabbi, I see people are saying hurtful things. People are manipulative. People are not nice. What do I do? How is it possible for me to look at them and love them while I feel hurt? And am I supposed to do something to protect myself? Okay. First of all, a person should judge another person favorably. What does that mean? Al tadin et chavercha ad shetagia limkomo. Our sages teach us in Pirkei Avot, do not judge your fellow till you come to his place, till you are in his shoes, in his situation. What does that mean? Well, number one, we all know that many people have gone through different difficulties, traumas, challenges, tests, some greater tests, some smaller tests. It says, "Eve dan et kol ha'adam lekav zechut." You should judge the whole person in a favorable way. What does it mean? You should judge him in a favorable way, the whole person? Well, because there's a whole human experience here. This is not just a person. It's a whole journey that is standing before you. Let me explain. Imagine Yaakov. Yaakov sees his friend Shimon that he did not see for 30 years. And he gives him a good pat on the shoulder. At that moment, his friend reacts in a very weird way. He screams, "Oi! My friend, what's wrong with you? What did I do?" He says, "Don't worry, it's not your fault. I had a ski accident when I was 12 and I broke my shoulder. And therefore, I'm very sensitive at this level. I have a trauma. I'm sorry. I understand you, you understand me." Let's imagine for a second that this person forgot or did not perceive this and did not put the dots together. He forgot that he had an accident when he was 12. And now Yaakov sees his friend, pats him nicely on the shoulder. He screams and says, why did you hit me? He says, I hit you, I did hit you. Each one of them doesn't know why the other one is upset. Who is right? Who is wrong? They're both right and they're both wrong. Meaning that what is sensitive, your point of sensitivity, your traumas are not mine. And therefore, I have to understand that if it's important for you in your world, if that is what's important, I have to get out of myself. Even though I don't agree with you, I have to be able to judge you favorably. What happens if I cannot live with that closed-mindedness, so to say? I cannot live with that type of limitation or that type of vision. What do I do? The Rebbe explains that when we came out of Egypt, it says that we finally went to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah. Our sages teach us, Kafa alehem har kegigit. God took the mountain and literally turned it over us and said, you're going to accept my Torah or else. The Rebbe says, really? That's what it means. What does it mean or else? What does it mean or else? The Rebbe explains that God inflicted Egypt with 10 plagues, took us out in broad daylight, opened the sea for us, gave us the manna, clouds of glory to protect us. Our enemies drowned. God gave us their gold and silver. He carried us all the way to the mountain. For the first time in the history of humanity, God says, I need something from you. Do you want my Torah? People were so overwhelmed with love. It's as if God took the mountain and put it over there. It's like, I have no choice. How could I say no after you've shown me so much love and you've gone out of yourself to help, to do, to care, to nurture, to love? So the first step is to show unconditional love. When you're able to show unconditional love, you're able to think of the other person's situation, what they've gone through in their life, how they're bitter. You put your ego aside and you understand that their reaction has nothing to do with you personally. This is a reaction they have all over. But it's not true, Rabbi. I see them with everybody else. They're nice and but with me, they're terrible. With everybody else that goes for their bluff and goes for their whatever image they want to project, that's what they need. You have people that need food. People have an iron deficiency. Some people have a kavod deficiency. They need kavod. They need honors. They need to feel good about themselves. Make them feel good about themselves. But at the same time, it does not mean that you have to go and become their doormat. Yes, I agree. You are living a situation and you are in conflict with this person. I agree that you are saying hurtful words, but doesn't mean that I'm going to accept. Because of your situation, I have to accept the hurt. If you are going to accept the manipulation, it's because you're not confident in yourself to put your boundaries. I'm going to tell you that when I was in yeshiva, I was 20 years old at the time, and I had decided to be very careful with speaking lashon hara, not to speak ill about somebody else. So you know what happens when somebody wants to be more righteous than everybody else? The first impression, the first reaction that people are going to have is, oh, goody two-shoes. You're extra tzaddik. Oh, you're trying to be better than everybody else. Who do you think you are? That was the first reaction. Put you down. Meaning, I'm not ready to make the commitment that you have made. But since I want to justify the fact that I continue, I'm going to make sure that you are not going to be better than me. So I did this and I stood steadfast. Next thing you know, people knew that I'm not interested. Sorry, if you're going to speak about somebody else, I'm not interested. Sorry, it's not for me. So at the beginning, they took it bad personally, and then they went to other people that had ears to hear all the nonsense they had to say about somebody else instead of doing something constructive in their life. So I understand that in a society that's built on media and lashon hara, and everything is just about speaking about another person and putting people down, it's very difficult to do that. The same thing, the same way I put my limitations, you could say, I'm sorry. When you are going to, I don't understand what you're saying. When you see that somebody is saying something hurtful, in most instances, I want to say that most people don't think about anything they're saying. They're just letting and having a mouth episode. So what you should do is just return the question. Did I hear you right? I don't understand what you're saying. And I'm sorry, when you speak in that tone of voice, I can't accept that. So I'll speak to you a little later. They got offended. It's not a problem. That's their problem. You stayed respectful. You did not take it personally. Most conflicts happens because I took it personally, as if I am the target of this person. Maybe that person has a very deep problem that you would never wish you or your kids should have. So pray for them. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says that when we want to be able to overcome conflict, it starts with working on ourselves and being more refined. And when we see that the other person is not able, when we show them love and unconditional love, without being a doormat, with a good balance, when we see that they're in such a situation that it's impossible to awaken them, love the good in them and awaken mercy. Pray for them that they should be able to reveal the light inside of them. Once we do that, one day I heard Rabbi Lipsker, she should live long and be well, especially with all the difficulties and great challenge he's been going through. May he have a long life and a long life and a lot of strength, him and his community, which are doing incredible work, great work of love of a fellow man. So he once said a story in the name of his father. He said something his father said, which really touched me. His father was a great educator. His name was Eliyahu Akiva Lipsker, lived in Toronto. He said the following. He said, a teacher has no right to lift his voice on his student if at night before he goes to sleep, he doesn't cry for this student. To hate a person for just because of this or that, if you didn't really sincerely cry for that person, that their soul is in such a distress that they have to go through living through this trouble and this confusion, and that's the way they live, then there's no right for you to scream or to cause or to take it to heart. So Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach, this is just the beginning. Let us rebuild our relationships, and I would like to give an assignment to everyone here. Somebody told me that he has a very great difficulty being happy, having simcha, true joy. So I told him the following. I don't know, I had a moment like this of inspiration. I told him, my friend, make sure every day you rejoice 3 people with a nice word, with a nice text, with a voice note, better in person, with a compliment. And if you are going to put yourself in that channel where you are trying to rejoice other people, to bring joy to other people, you will see how Hashem will bring you joy. And who knows, maybe what happened to me over 25 years ago will happen to you without you knowing. 25 years ago, when I've told you this, because there's a story that really touched me at my core, and I'll conclude with this today. An older lady, when I was a rabbi at the shul of Bell Harbor, an older lady approached me and said, "Thank you, Rabbi. I looked at her, ma'am, and said, I'm sorry, you have the wrong person. Says, no, thank you, you saved my life. I said, what are you talking about, ma'am? I think you really have the wrong person. And then she told me that she had lost her husband 6 months before. She has one son that doesn't speak to her for 2 years. And she was walking on Shabbat on Collins Avenue, and she was so depressed and she had such dark ideas in her mind that she is useless, that she was ready to throw herself in front of the next car, God forbid. As the thoughts of negativity were penetrating and becoming stronger and stronger, she saw me, and I said simply, I smiled at her and said, Shabbat Shalom. Do you have where to eat for lunch? She said that moment of smiling and that moment of personal interest, that taking personal interest in her for that 1 second changed everything and saved her life. So my dear friends, go save a life today. Smile to a person, make other people happy, and you will see how you will be happy and you will be more successful. Have a fantastic week. Shavua Tov.